Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here to the fabulous Park Royal for this wonderful Innate Power of Women Forum, which is an event jointly organised by Pallavi Shina and the Community Migrant Resource Centre. Give yourselves a big hand for being here. I'm going to pay tribute to a number of wonderful women. You are all very special people. My name is Stephen Sim. I'm your Master of Ceremonies today, and it's been an honour being asked to be the Master of Ceremonies at an event like this. You are all special, but we have two very special guests. Firstly, we have the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor, the New South Wales Minister for Health, Regional Youth and Women. Welcome, Minister. Give her a big hand, come on. We also have the great Philip Ruddock with us. Now, Philip, you may not know this or remember, but I met you first through your father, Max, who was also a Member of Parliament, through Max and Joan McGill, who owned the service station on Beecroft Road. Do you remember those days back then? Of course you do. And Philip served many years in the Australian Parliament, the Federal Parliament. He became the father of the Australian Parliament, serving in several ministries with great distinction. And he has such a love of the community, he just doesn't sit down and retire. He ends up being the Mayor of Hornsby. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Ruddock. Now, today's event has been organised to coincide with the New South Wales Women's Week, which seeks to improve the lives of women throughout New South Wales and beyond. A big hand for New South Wales Women's Week, please. And today we're also recognising women champions in the following categories. Firstly, we have the grassroots champion, the young champion, the senior champion, the rural and regional champions, an initiative by a group and an individual. Give them a big hand, please, and all those when we'll make that announcement later on. You can't have an event like this without sponsors. Now, I want you to remember the sponsors, put them in that computer in your mind and use their products and services, please. First, we have the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice. Thank you. The University of Sydney, a place where they first took a big risk many years ago in 1966 and employed me. The Commonwealth Bank, the CBA. Sharma's Kitchen, thank you, Sharma's Kitchen. AFEA, which is an aged care and disability service provider. I believe they're here today. Put up your hands, please. Thank you for being a sponsor. And Survivor Watch. Big hand for all the sponsors. Keep it going. Now, our first speaker today is the fabulous Melissa Montero. She's the CEO of the Community Migrant Resource Centre. Now, Melissa has strategically navigated diverse environments through her broad knowledge and skills and community development practices and consultation methods. Her strategies are the ability to build solid and trustworthy relationships with community workers, local governments and key leaders within a diverse range of communities. She has fostered over 200 collaborations and partnerships in Western Sydney through the 80 staff members that she leads. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a big warm welcome to Melissa Montero. Melissa.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, their elders past and present. Distinguished guests, Minister Bronwyn Taylor, the Honourable Philip Ruddock, Warren Schweitzer, special guests, let me start by formally welcoming you all to the Innate Power of Women Forum this morning. A few weeks ago, Pallavi Shina approached me, and as always, she had this wonderful idea of a Women's Week program with a difference. I was very excited, as I normally am, and that's how we are here celebrating New South Wales Women's Week. Minister Bronwyn, special guests, a very warm welcome to you, speakers, panelists, award winners, welcome to you, and everyone present here today. The CMRC are a community-based specialist resettlement service agency in the western and northern regions of Sydney. We provide settlement services which assist newly arrived migrants, refugees, to build self-resilience and integrate and participate in the local community. Our role is to improve the social and economic participation of newly arrived community members with a focus on offering access to capacity building programs, mentoring, and targeted training that builds the resilience of individuals and communities. Our staff provide individuals and communities cultural knowledge and programs to enable them to negotiate the delicate transition from home culture to their new culture that they now live in. Our programs also provide a range of capacity building services with focus on early intervention, prevention, and support. Building community capacity is an important aspect of our core business. Capacity building programs by staff address challenges from within a community with an aim to improve positive engagement and social connection. This increases a community's positive resettlement and cultural adjustment. As long as discrimination and inequalities remain so commonplace around the world, and as long as girls and women are valued less, fed last, overlooked, overworked, underpaid, not schooled, and subjected to violence in and out of their homes, the potential of the human family to create a peaceful and prosperous world will not be realized. A strong woman, says Marge Piercy, a strong woman is a woman determined to do something others are determined not be done. Simply put, the CMRC's mission is to promote equality and equity. As we work to address the root causes, systemic injustices, and long-term effects of extreme inequality, we know we cannot do this alone. It will take collaboration between individuals, between public, private, and not-for-profit entities, because together I think we are stronger. To that end, over the last several years, we have focused on growing and building the capacity of women. A few weeks ago, I started reading Melinda Gates's book, The Moment of Lift, and I'm not sure how many of you have read The Moment of Lift. In her book, Melinda Gates tells the stories of inspiring people she met through her work all over the world. She digs deep into the data and powerfully illustrates issues that need our attention, whether it is child marriage to gender equality in the workplace and more. It is an urgent call to courage. That is what and how I have changed, and that's the impact that Melinda Gates's book in the last few weeks has impacted on me, my thinking, my family, my work, and what's possible in the world. I have always been a champion for women, and you'll know that over the years, I have, and my organization has struggled to actually put women first in everything that we do. And that's why today we recognize the direct impact of changing the life of a woman and how it can change the life of a whole village and community. And that's why today we will recognize, Minister, we will recognize today champions, rural champions and others, grassroots women who are working out there through their organizations as well as through individuals, what they are doing at various levels. We've got both the extreme levels, as you will see in the champions that have been nominated a little later this morning. That is our role, and that's what the Community Migrant Resource Centre is all about. Can you imagine now a world without these strong women, a world without these strong champions? This is impossible to fathom. That's the reason why we at the Community Migrant Resource Centre invest and have invested in so many of the initiatives that we've done in the last few years. That's why we've spearheaded and led for the last 2 decades. We've successfully run the Inspiring Change Women's Conference, and Tracy Spicer, you were one of our keynote speakers about 7 years ago when we first started off. We run mothers groups as soft entry points. We engage young refugee women in soccer and sport. We invest in refugee women through the arts, through our Creativity Unleashed programs. And over the years, we've partnered with hundreds of services. And together, we are transforming hundreds, if not thousands of lives in the last 20 years. I'd like to end now by saying that it is a firm determination, not just with me, but with my organization and with all the staff and the team and the managers, that we will not let injustice, we will not let inequality go by. We will pledge to protect women's human rights in all circumstances. Together, we will foster their capabilities in every field at all times. Together, we will make their voices heard in decision-making. Together, we will promote and harness their leadership. Together, we will unleash their power in all its dimensions, and we will together ensure that women's full potential is realized for generation to generation. Enjoy, everyone. Thank you for being with us, and let's have a great forum together. Thank you.
Come on, give her a big hand, Melissa Montero. Fabulous speech, thank you so much. And the great speakers just keep on coming. Now, Pallavi Sinha is a multi-award winning lawyer, academic and notary public. She serves on the New South Wales Council for Women's Economic Opportunity and is an appointed supporter of the joint federal and state campaign to stop domestic and family violence. Pallavi has represented and presented submissions before government committees, and she has influenced changes to government policies. She often appears in the media, including Channel 9, Sky News, ABC, BBC World, and last Friday on my program on the North Shore's 99.3, where she spoke beautifully. And Pallavi's opinion pieces have been published by the Sydney Morning Herald, the ABC, SBS, and a wide range of community newspapers. In 2019, she was presented an award as a trusted service provider and a Corporate Vision Innovation Award. She is also the convener of today's fabulous event. Please welcome Pallavi Sinha.
Thanks, Stephen, for that kind introduction. And Stephen is one of our male champions. Although this is predominantly for women today, let's also give Stephen a big hand of applause for the great work he's doing. So welcome all of you. I really, truly appreciate from the bottom of my heart the fact that you've taken time out today from your busy schedules to come and celebrate the beginning of New South Wales Women's Week with all of us. I'm so excited, and I hope all of you are excited as well, because it is the beginning of New South Wales Women's Week. Yeah. And it's even more exciting that we are so privileged and honoured to have the New South Wales Minister for Women herself. She's also the Minister for Mental Health and for Regional Youth, the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor, here with us today. And I know that some of the guests have already been acknowledged, so I'll just quickly run through some of the key names. We also have the member for East Hills, Wendy Lindsay. We have Tracy Spicer. We have, of course, the Chief Executive Officer, Melissa Montero, and her CMRC team, who've been the backbone for this event today. We also have the Mayor, Philip Ruddock, the Mayor of Hornsby, who was also the former federal member for Parramatta and the second longest serving member of federal Parliament. And we also have our sponsors that we're so grateful for, who Stephen's mentioned earlier. We have many councillors in the room. We have a lot of other distinguished guests. And in fact, every one of you in this room is a champion. Although we will be recognising some specially, I really want all of you to take stock of the good work that you do and really pat yourselves on the back. Men and women, we've had some fantastic men helping us out today, but especially today is about women. It is New South Wales Women's Week, and we're here to celebrate the outstanding achievements, the economic, the political, the social, and the cultural achievements of women. Women who one day may be managing a household. Another day, they're at the head of a boardroom office, supervising hundreds of staff. They may also be taking care of children to and from school and coordinating multiple tasks, some of which I've described, but many more, all at the same time. Each one of you has a unique story. Each one of you has your own story and has your own journey that you've been through. And I do think it is such a great forum today. I was so grateful when I was able to approach Melissa and she kindly agreed and the CMRC staff came on board, because this is about women. This is about educating, empowering and enriching women. Women are about 50% of the Australian population. So women are a force to be reckoned with, and we want to see each and every one of you reach your full potential. So we will be recognising some champions today. One of them has come all the way from Young, and we're very lucky that she's been able to travel this far. We also have people from all over New South Wales who've done outstanding work. And I'm also very, very pleased to announce that one of the key outcomes from today is that not only are we going to recognise these champions, but we would like to establish a working group that can inform policy. And we will draw on the leadership of the CMRC and the broader champion list that we have, because we'd really like to harness your talents. There are so many areas, whether it's economic participation, it's inequity, it's leadership, it's domestic or family violence. So one of the key outcomes I'm pleased to announce is the establishment of a working group, and we will be meeting on a regular and ongoing basis, so there is something that will be continued on from this forum. Because anything that is good for women is good for everyone. Women are key contributors in so many facets of our life, and women are really, we've got fantastic women leaders. Our Premier is a woman. We have Tracy Spicer, who's led the way in a lot of places, a lot of different sectors. We've got the Vice Principal of Sydney University, she's a woman. We've got Marlene, the Head of Strategy. Look, there's so many women leaders here in the room. If I try to mention all of you, there won't be enough time. But my point is that they are getting there, but there is still more to be done. And that's what we're here about today. So I'm so excited, as I mentioned earlier, that the New South Wales Minister for Women, the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor, kindly agreed to join us today and is present for this momentous occasion. It is the inaugural event and it will be held annually, thanks to Melissa Montero and the CMRC team. And next year we want to make it even bigger and involve as many more people as we can. We were so grateful that we actually have reached a sellout before the event completed, but now we may be thinking about having a bigger venue next year. We'll do that when we start planning for the next one. But to introduce to you now the Honourable New South Wales Minister for Women, Bronwyn Taylor. She is such a hard-working and inspiring minister. She's had a lot of experience in the field before joining New South Wales Parliament. For 20 years prior to her election, she worked as a registered nurse, specialising in cancer care and palliative care. Such an important field to be coming from and contributing so directly to New South Wales Parliament. She became the Director of Cancer Services in the Southern New South Wales Local Health District, and she also served as the Deputy Mayor for the Cooma-Monaro Shire, and then became involved in the National Party. And the rest is history. She's now our New South Wales Minister for Women. Please put your hands together for the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor.
Thanks, Pallavi. Hi. I really, the energy is so high in this room that I'm hoping I can follow from the previous two speakers. So thank you so very much for having me today. My name is Bronnie Taylor and I am the Minister for Mental Health, Regional Youth and Women. Stephen, thank you for your kind introduction before and your promotion to the Minister for Health. I'm sure Brad Hazzard may not be so happy about that, but I'll take it. Thank you very much. Look, welcome, and a very big thank you to Plavi for organising today. It's been amazing, and how incredible that it's sold out and that you're all here to celebrate New South Wales Women's Week. I'm pretty chuffed. It's the start of my week, so you're my first event. So thank you for having me, and it's terrific to be here. Melissa, thank you very much for your comments earlier on. I think they're very strong and very powerful, and you could certainly feel the passion within you for what you're doing. And also a very big shout out to my colleague Wendy. It's terrific to have another woman in the New South Wales Parliament. You've hit the ground running and you're just a terrific contributor, and I love having you around and I love chatting to you, and I think that Parliament's going to be a much better place for having you in it. So here we are to talk about women and Women's Week. So I thought I'd just start by telling you a little bit about myself. You've all got your own journeys and your own realities that have happened to you to be where you are. For me, I grew up overseas actually most of my life. My father worked for Qantas, so we moved around a lot and I went to lots of different schools. I mostly grew up in Asia, in the Philippines and in Thailand. And I sort of, it was actually quite funny for me because my father was actually one of the proudest Australians that you would ever know. So everywhere in whatever country we lived in, we had to have a flagpole and Dad would fly the Australian flag, except in New York City where it was a little bit hard out of the apartment. But, Dad always instilled in us this really wonderful thing about where we were from and who we are and why we should be so proud to be who we are. And that he always wanted us to have that real sense of history, I think, because we weren't growing up where we were born. So with that, I was really fortunate enough to, I moved back to Australia when I was about 16 and I went to uni here and I did nursing. And look, I have to be very honest and transparent because I think that's really important. I didn't have a huge amount of choices with my ATAR when I left school. I spent a lot of time at school talking and having a lot of fun, probably not paying as much attention as I should have. But I think for me, one of the most important things about the education that I was given was that I left school knowing that if I put my mind to something, I could achieve anything that I wanted to. I had a real sense of wanting to be a nurse. I'd heard another woman come to my school and talk about how she was doing cancer nursing over in London, and it was something that really appealed to me. And that's something too that I'll follow on with later, but it's so important as women that we tell our stories, because I think sometimes you don't realise the power of that story when you're talking to other people. The enormous power that the story of, I remember Edwina Saunders spoke to me about that day when she stood on the stage at my school and talked about cancer nursing, really changed the course of my life for me. So I say to you all, tell your stories to people, share it with other women, because it is powerful and it is really inspiring. So I went off and I did nursing at Sydney University. I think I was the second lot of non-trained hospital nurses. So that was quite a difficult time in the profession of nursing, because you would come out and start working and you hadn't had as much practical experience as those generations before you. But anyway, we got through that. Anyway, I'm very boring, ladies and gentlemen. I married my Year 12 formal partner. I know. So can you imagine, I'm the mother of 2 daughters. Can you imagine trying to explain to them and encourage them and counsel them about relationships? Because they say, like, seriously, Mum, you've had one? So, but anyway, we worked through that, and every story's got something powerful. So my husband was, he came from a farming family down in Nimidabel, which is down near Cooma. We've got about a population of 320 in Nimidabel. Duncan never said to me that he wanted to go home and be a farmer. He was doing eco law at Sydney Uni, and I thought, oh yeah, here we go. This will be an interesting sort of time. And anyway, one day he said, Bron, I really want to move back to the farm. It's where I want to raise my family, and I really want you to come back with me. And look, the reality is, everyone, I would have followed him to Timbuktu. He really is a bit of a dish, and he's really lovely. So off I trotted to the country, thinking, seriously, we're going to last 12 months. He's not going to want to stay, and we'll be back in Sydney before we know it. And by this time, my father had retired, so he was back in Sydney too. So it was really hard being away from my family. And basically, I wasn't that great on the farm. So I tell you one story where we have sheep and cattle, right? So we're wool producers and beef producers and lamb producers. And one of the things that you have to do is with sheep, you have to, do procedures to get them going and to make their wool beautiful so you can all enjoy your beautiful, natural, clean woolen products. Anyway, we were in the yards one day and I thought, I'll go out and give a bit of a hand. I can do this. You're a strong woman. Anyway, I friggin' passed out. I fainted in the sheep yards, right? My husband grabs me, and we live on the Monero, it's treeless plains, so there's not many trees, and it was a bit warm. He picks me up, he drags me across the thing and shoves me under the tree, and I wake up and go, oh my God, how embarrassing. I've so got to go back to work. So that for me was so empowering that I had a profession that I could basically work anywhere in the world with, anywhere in Australia with. So off I went to Cooma Hospital, which I absolutely loved. I'd spent time working in Sydney at different hospitals around the place, and then I really found a love and a passion for palliative care nursing. So a job came up in Cooma. I started working as a palliative care nurse, which I absolutely loved, and it is just such an incredible privilege to do that type of nursing and healthcare. But what I was finding in my practice was that perhaps when I had started in Sydney and I had been nursing a lady who had end-stage liver cancer, I was now finding 10 years on from that with that liver cancer came advanced chemotherapy, advanced radiotherapy, and we actually knew that lady was going to live a lot longer and a lot better. So the nature of cancer nursing really changed during that time in my professional career, and it changed really from a terminal illness to a chronic illness, of which cancer is now. I mean, we have the most phenomenal rates of success in this country with cancer care. So what I found in my practice was that my patients were living longer and living better, but they had to travel so far for services. So as I said, I live in Nimidabel, so my closest biggest town is Cooma. Does anyone know where Cooma is down the Snowy Mountains? Yeah, hands up, yeah, great, okay. So people often think, well, Cooma's only an hour to Canberra, so that's not that far. But they didn't think about my patients that lived down at Bombala, lived down at Delegate, patients I had that lived up in Thredbo, and how far that distance was for them. But not only that, for my patients, they had to leave work for the day to drive to the Canberra hospital. They had to spend the whole time there. They weren't there to pick up their children from school. They weren't there to get things for what they needed to do. So it affected the entire family. So I thought to myself, well, what can I do to make this better for my rural and regional patients? So I thought, you know what, we can do chemotherapy in Cooma. We can do it safely and we can do it effectively. I knew we couldn't do radiotherapy. I knew we couldn't do really complicated types of surgery, but I knew we could do that. And the key for me was one of my patients who was a farmer who was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she chose to have a radical mastectomy followed by chemotherapy and radiotherapy rather than, I beg your pardon, she chose to have a radical mastectomy so that she wouldn't have breast-conserving surgery followed by chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And when I asked her why, she said to me, because I don't want to be away from home. And I thought, this is crazy. A woman is going to have radical surgery, have her breast removed, when she could have conserving surgery and go forward. So I thought, right, I'm going to do something about it. So I did. I did what any woman would do. I thought, I'll look for a solution. So I approached the health service. I said to them, we need to have an oncology service in Cooma. There's no reason why we can't do it safely and effectively. We'll save money. We'll increase people's quality of life. And actually, it's the right thing to do. So I was met with, you know what, Bronnie, this will never happen. And it's not going to happen, so you need to give up. Oh, is there any better word to a woman than you need to give up? So no, I'm not going to frigging give up. This is the right thing to do. So what do? I joined a local women's group called the Monero Committee for Cancer Research. And I said to them, they said, what do we need, Bronnie? I said, we need an oncology service. So what did we do? We needed money because the health service wasn't going to come on board. So we organised a Coomers Dancing with the Stars. And I was Sonia Kruger. And I know that's quite hard to believe looking at me now, but I absolutely rocked it, ladies. And we raised in excess of over $1 million. We're a population of 8,000. So thank you. So that was pretty exciting. And we opened the Cooma Oncology Service. We started breast cancer surgery at Cooma Hospital. We also fundraised to buy a Navigator probe, which is an essential part of any type of modern breast cancer surgery. And I suppose one of the proudest moments for me is I have a wonderful GP. GPs are really important in rural and regional New South Wales. And he was a bit against me when I lobbied for that oncology service because he was worried about the extra workload it might provide for the GPs. 18 months ago, he was diagnosed with lymphoma and he's been able to be treated in the Cooma clinic. And he rang me not so long ago and he said, Bronnie, thank you so much for everything that you've done. Because of you, I've been able to stay home and be with my family and be treated. And it wasn't me, it was the entire group of people. But my message to you today here is that there's always solutions to problems. And the best people to find those solutions are the people on the ground and the people working in that space. We need to listen, we need to give people time, and we need to not take no as a definitive answer. For me, and hand on heart, I never had any interest in politics. I'd never been a member of a political party. I just thought that was for everybody else. I mean, I was a little bit interested when I moved to the Monero because we are in a marginal seat, a bellwether seat. So usually whoever votes for us ends up in government. So people tend to be a little bit interested. But for me, the only great thing about being a marginal seat was the fact that I could lobby for my cancer service. So it wasn't something that was on my radar. But what happened was that I got approached by someone to run for Parliament and I laughed. I said, you got to be joking. Like, there's no way I'm going to run for Parliament. Anyway, here I am, ladies and gentlemen. But I think what it also tells you is that often throughout our careers, I really loved being a nurse. And can I tell you right now, when you're talking to a Sydney taxi driver and they say, what do you do? I still lie and say I'm a nurse because, nurse, politician, like, what would you do, hey? So, you got to be honest about these things. But it was such a terrific job and I was so happy and so proud of the work that I was doing and the privilege that I had that I really wasn't looking for anything else. But I think that's really important for women as well, is that, I thought when I got to my 40s I was getting a little bit long in the tooth. Now I'm invigorated by being a 51-year-old woman who's had a new career. And I think that's what we're so good at as well. So put your hand up for things and try different things, because you can think that you're going down one path and then all of a sudden you can turn around and go down another. And I think as women we're really great at transforming ourselves and at doing different things. And I also, too, typically I thought, oh my goodness, like I can't be a member of Parliament. I can't do this. And I became, a minister and oh my gosh, imposter syndrome and all of that. But you know what? We can do it and we should do it because we need to tell our stories to encourage people in our own age group and our own peer group and to encourage our younger generation. We really need to support each other. We're sometimes not so good at that as women. But I encourage all of you, look around today, make your connections, meet new friends, but also back each other in, because it's one of the most important things that you'll do. And also don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to think, I seriously never thought I'd do that, but you know what, I'm going to give it a bit of a whack. Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out and it's something you don't want to do, you've lost nothing. You've only just increased your opportunities and you've increased your experience. So I think give it a go and have a whirl. I never in my wildest dreams, never thought I would be standing here as your Minister for Women. And I must say, I never thought they'd give me the Ministry for Women, being a country rural member, so I was really pleased about that too. But, it's great. And I think one life, one opportunity, go out there and make it happen. And today is exactly what that's about. So I think I'm getting the wind up too, because I do tend to rabbit on for a while. I can talk forever. I love chatting, but it's important. And I hope you have a really terrific day. I hope you help all of us across New South Wales celebrate New South Wales Women's Week. Sometimes people say funny things to me like, oh, why do we need a Women's Week? Or is there a minister for men? And I say, no, there's not. There's a minister for women, and that's me. And this is New South Wales Women's Week. And you know what, ladies? We're going to rock it, we're going to own it, and we're going to enjoy it. Have a great day.
What an inspiring speech, straight from the heart. Thank you so much to the New South Wales Minister for Women, Mental Health and Regional Youth. Please put your hands together for the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor. So we're also very, very fortunate that she's agreed to take 3 quick questions. Now, I see someone already very keen. She does have to duck away to a function very soon, and as I said, we're very grateful that she's even been able to spare the time today, and getting in early and booking her is something we have to do, as you've seen.
I don't say no to you.
She knows she can't say no to me. No, she is a very, very high-achieving minister, and we're very grateful for having her here today. Now, she may not be able to see the whole panel discussion which we're about to have with some amazing women. So I just might touch on the fact that we will be discussing flexible work practices for women. So what are some of the new or interesting ways that you have heard about to encourage women into the workforce or back into the workforce? Sometimes women might take time out for children, to care for the elderly, to have a career change or a break. What would be some that you could tell us about?
Yeah, can you guys hear me, or do you want me to speak in the microwave? And the microwave and the microphone. That's a good start, isn't it? Anyway, I'll do the microphone now. I have such a loud voice. You know, I was never the best soccer team, but I was the loudest member of the soccer team. Look, I think flexible work practice is really, really important, and I think that there's a lot of different things. I know for me, the fact that I could have a flexible workplace after I had my children and I was able to go back to nursing meant everything to me, because that actually meant me being able to go back into the workforce and keep my skills up in my profession. In my own office, I implement very flexible work practice. I'm always asking Annabelle, who's here with me today, there she is, I'm always hassling her, quick, you've got to pick Oliver up from daycare, don't be late, they'll fine you, and I think it's really important. But then Annabelle gives back in spades to me, because when I'm texting her incessantly yesterday, she responds. But I think that it's really important to have that flexible work practice as well for anyone. There's really great things happening. There's a lady called Jo Palmer who won the Rural Woman of the Year this year, and she has started a business that actually looks at tapping into a lot of women that are out there, and in Western Australia, where there's so many jobs and so many opportunities, but actually allowing people to work remotely. So I think there's all sorts of those. But I think as women, we need to make sure that other women within our practice and men have those flexible workplaces so that they can be with their families, that we value that time with their families, and also we value that time for them to be who they are, because I think when we allow that, we get more out of people. I certainly I've been a beneficiary of a flexible workplace, and I would not be where I am today if I had not had the female bosses that I did that allowed that for me. So
thanks very much, Minister. Michal Clements, I can see you waving your hand up very enthusiastically.
Well, the energy is coming off the stage, so I couldn't help it. So thank you. Just a quick question. In politics, you work with male-dominated industry. What advice would you recommend to other women who are entering in male-dominating industries?
Yeah. So I came out of nursing, which is really female-dominated, into Parliament, which is really male-dominated. So, to be fair, I don't think either's a really good result. And I say that because what I think is really important, say within my own party, in the National Party, and in our party room where we discuss policy and what we're going to progress and what's going forward, regardless, when you look at gender or you look at whatever issues are important to me, so healthcare is really important to me. It's why I put my hand up for politics and policy. And education's also pretty important to me because I see the value through my own children and myself. So I talk about those things. I talk about health and I talk about education. There's other people that talk about different things. I think for women, we have, lots of things that are important to us. But the thing is that if we're not at the table and we're not discussing those issues, then the policy can't be set. So I think particularly in areas of policy setting, which is government, it's so important to have a balance. Because if you don't have the balance, you don't have the conversation. And to be fair, I don't think it's something that, men around the table just don't think about it. I think that they're thinking about other things. So I think the more balance you can have of all sorts of things, including gender, actually ends up with much better policy outcome. And I think too that you just need to be able to have the confidence to stand up and say what you do. And sometimes it's confidence, sometimes it's courage. And sometimes I think as women we sit back and we think, oh, should I say that? Should I say that? Well, enough, I'll say it. And I'm just not sure. And say it. Say it, because you'll actually be really surprised about the support that you get. We've discussed some really big issues recently in our party room at Parliament. And, some of the blokes who I think if you knew who they were, you'd think, oh, they might sort of think a certain way and be like that. But for us, it was, this is an issue that's really important to the women in this room and we're going to back them in. And I think sometimes outside you don't see that, but internally for us, that really definitely happens, but it wouldn't happen unless we were there. So I think we need to speak up and we need to make sure that we have that voice and we need to make sure that we're at the table.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Who feels inspired after hearing that? I feel very inspired.
You're so nice. You keep nodding and thank you. Yeah. I don't know you, but thank you.
It's always great to be encouraged by someone in a position like yourself, because sometimes some people might think, oh, she's a minister, I can't even go up and ask her a question. And you've been so approachable.
Some people throw eggs at us, so I wouldn't worry about that.
So you're encouraging people to have the confidence and to step forward. And unfortunately, as we do only have you for a limited amount of time, we're just going to have one more question. Oh, and I can see there's a young lady right at the back, which is good because we want to try and get to as many of you as possible. And if any of you are not at a table and you'd like to sit at a table, there are a few seats of some guests who haven't come yet. So if you'd like to come forward, feel free to. And while he's getting to the question, I might also thank the male champions that are here today. Every single man in the room here today is encouraging us by attending. And personally, I know that Mayor Philip Ruddock and Stepan Kirkasharian, I'm sorry to single people out, and of course my dad, I'm a bit biased, but yeah, a lot of people know my dad, Dr. Sinha. They're the ones who actually encourage women to excel as well, and they're part of the whole solution, which is really important to all of us. So Kushi, a young girl, that's fantastic. Really good to see that you're inspired to ask a question.
Okay, so as a young woman myself, I was wondering, in your workplace, how do you engage young women as well?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and it's so important, isn't it? So I'm also the Minister for Regional Youth, so we've just started a Regional Youth Task Force. There's actually a member of my Regional Youth Task Force here today, which I'm really excited about. Put your hand up. Wave, yeah. So it's really. So what we've done is, in terms of say the regional youth sort of portfolio, is we knew that what we had to do was, I think sometimes as policymakers we go and we think we know what young people want, but I think that's a mistake. I think we need to hear from young people what they want and the things that are important to them. So we've set up a regional youth task force so that they are my voice into cabinet, and they are advising me and telling me what they think the issues are that are important. We also did a really big project last year where we went out to communities and we consulted with youth and we asked them what were the important things for them, and they've come up sort of with 4 pillars of things in terms of regional. But we've actually got a youth advocate in New South Wales, and she's a terrific lady. She's actually just started this year. And so we're actually sending her out to make sure, and they've spoken to over 5,000 young people to hear from them what they think is important and what the issues are. So I think we have to keep listening to you, and we have to keep working with you, and we have to keep making sure that we allow all of the youth in this state, men and women, to be the best that they can be and to provide those opportunities. But I think there's a real recognition now in government that I think the intention has always been really good for our young people, but I think now that intent needs to be met with that genuine, authentic consultation with you as well. So that's what we're trying to do, and if we're not doing it well enough, you need to let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thanks, Kushi.
Good on you for speaking up.
So we've got young Kalwa, she's only 13 years old, and Kushi, could we give these young women who are our future leaders a big round of applause, please? And if I've missed out anyone, sorry, it's because I haven't seen that you're the young person in the room, but that round of applause was for you as well. Now, because the Minister does have to go, we're going to just quickly do 1 or 2 award presentations before her. There's quite a few different categories which we'll be presenting towards the end of the function as well. But we'll just present 2 awards now. So if I could ask the MC, Mr. Stephen Sim, back on the stage to announce one of our award winners. If I could also invite Melissa Montero, the CEO of Community Migrant Resource Centre, our CMRC Chair, and we'll be getting different people to present different awards at different times.
Thank you, Pallavi. Now, this award is for the Rural and Regional Champion of the Year Award. Give them all the grand finalists a big hand. And the winner is?
The winner is Kala Asma. Sorry if I haven't pronounced it right.
Now, Carla has been using her passion, skills and dedication to eradicate stereotypes and improve life opportunities and outcomes for young people. She's a member of the Young High School Leadership Team and an active member of the New South Wales Regional Task Force. She has an interest in mental health and raising awareness of mental health issues impacting young people living in regional towns of New South Wales, and aren't there many? She's a true leader and a wonderful role model to other girls, always encouraging others to strive hard to achieve positive outcomes, and this at the tender age of just 13. What a magnificent effort. Thank you, Pallavi.
Could I also, sorry, before the award is announced, could I invite Wendy Lindsay, Member of Parliament, to come on the stage to help present? There'll be a few people presenting various different awards, but before the Minister goes, we'll just present one more in front of Wendy Lindsay, the Member for East Hills. Thanks, Wendy.
Welcome, Wendy. Okay, this is for the Initiative of the Year Award for a group. And it is the Lisa Harnham Foundation. Now, Aileen Mounterfield is the founder and executive director of the Lisa Harnham Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organisation that supports and empowers families affected by domestic violence while striving to prevent and end the cycle of abuse through education and social change. Fabulous. Their aim is to be a part of a community which domestic violence is totally eradicated for everyone, by everyone. Wow, 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 how good's that? Now, Linda Lemon works tirelessly towards empowering women and knowledge and skills to be able to stand on their own and find a new life for themselves and their families. The winner of the Initiative of the Year Award for a group is the Lisa Harnham Foundation. Aileen and Linda. Big smile, photograph time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. All right, grab your seats if you could, please. And I'll invite Minister Taylor back on stage for one more award. And Pallavi, if you come up, that would be great.
Yes, definitely. With Anya. Is it this one? I say that.
I need you for the listing. This one. Discussions.
So not this one, the next one. Okay.
All right, this award is the Grassroots Champion of the Year Award, and the winner is...
Violet Rimiliotis.
Now, Violet is the CEO of Settlement Services International, a community organisation and social business that supports newcomers and other vulnerable individuals to achieve their full potential. A member of the Order of Australia in 2017, Telstra Businesswoman of the Year, and national winner of the For-Purpose and Social Enterprise category, the 2018 AFR 100 Women of Influence, the 2018 InStyle Women of Style Community Champion. Violet is committed to achieving equal and advancing diversity and inclusion in all forms. In 2020, she was made a member of the Order of Australia for her outstanding service to the community. Violet sits on the board of the Australian Council of Social Service, Family Planning New South Wales, and the New South Wales Domestic and Family Violence and Sexual Assault Council. Congratulations, Violet! Congratulations, everybody. No. All right. Now she has to go now. Would you please, everybody stand and give a big thank you to the Honourable Bronwyn Taylor, the New South Wales Minister for Mental Health, Regional Youth and Women. Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Another round of applause for the Minister. Thank you, Bronwyn. And we're now going to briefly hear from our Grassroots Champion of the Year, Violet Rimiliotis. Or close? Thank you. That's Greek, is it?
It is.
Well, when the wrestling was on, I used to watch Spiros Arion many, many years ago. The Golden Greek. Here's Violet, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. I want to first start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land of which we meet and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as we move forward with reconciliation renewal at its heart. So it's absolute, I'm really touched by this recognition, and particularly because it comes from a multicultural community organisation like Community Migrant Resource Centre, of which is led by an extraordinary woman, Melissa Montero. We've been colleagues for many, many years, an inspiring leader, and she has an extraordinary team, amazing women. I think there's a couple of men there doing some good work, but the women are really pulling their weight. And I do want to acknowledge someone in particular, standing over there, who does some pretty amazing work. You're in my heart, and I think many, Aurelia. I'm also honoured to be acknowledged for something that I deeply value, which is grassroots involvement in community. And I guess I haven't had what you would call a typical pathway to be the CEO of what you would call now, I guess, a large national organisation with 1,000 staff. I'm a second-generation Australian woman. I grew up in Bankstown in Western Sydney. I went to public school, very proud of that. And every weekend I spent working in mum and dad's business, a corner shop. So it was great. I grew up going to Greek events on the weekends and Greek church events. I am proud of my roots and being very open about the obstacles that my family overcame in order to build their life in Australia. And my aunts, wonderful businesswomen in the Greek community, but invisible to mainstream Australia in many ways. So I share and celebrate my family story because I know how important it is for women from diverse backgrounds to see what is possible. We are wives, mothers and daughters, but we have great potential that extends far beyond that. You know, we have many facets to identities, and many of you in here are testament to that. So in 2020, it really is simply not good enough that only 2% in our ASX-listed companies are directors are women. Only 1 in 4 women from diverse backgrounds have to scale back at work because of cultural barriers, and female migrants have significantly lower employment than their Australian-born peers. So, while we wait for structural inequity to shift, I urge you to take up the challenge and be the change you want to see. We all have that capacity within ourselves. Reach out to that potential mentor, network and connect as often as you can and try to learn something new every day. And those of us who can be mentors to actually make the time in your diary. I know we always say we're busy, but there's someone out there you can actually change their lives by just spending time and offering what you have here and here to them. It's very important. Above all, seize opportunities to lift one another up. We heard the minister, what an inspiration, you know, about, you know, that authenticity, about, you know, backing each other, being kind and being generous. That's so important. And lastly, I think kudos to Pallavi and to Melissa to having the vision for something like this, an annual event. I'm here for the long haul to champion whatever I can to support, like I'm sure many in here. Wonderful Tracy, as I said many times, a great supporter, and lovely to see people I regard and respect very much, Stepan and Philip Ruddock and many others in the room, my colleague Esther, Malini and many, many others. So I look forward to collaborating with all of you, all of us champions in our own way. And thank you very much. It's a wonderful honour.
Congratulations, Violet, the Grassroots Champion of the Year. All right, it's time for the panel, our panel discussion. Now, first, would you welcome our facilitator, the fabulous Pallavi Sinha. Pallavi, come on stage, thank you. Lawyer, academic, and the recipient of the Westpac's 100 Women of Influence. She has facilitated numerous panel discussions across New South Wales on topics such as women empowerment, domestic violence, and education. And now with our panellists. First, we have Malini Raj, the Head of Strategy, the Multicultural Community Banking with the fabulous Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Now, Malini has worked in the finance industry for over 18 years in several domestic and international institutions across various disciplines. As Head of Strategy for the Multicultural Community Banking at the Commonwealth Bank, her role allows her to work in an area of passion on a daily basis, promoting cultural diversity and social cohesion. She consistently advocates for more diverse workforce and diverse representation in the community. She has recently completed the NSW Gender Diversity Program. She's a key driver of the CBA's Cultural Diversity Employee Network Mosaic, leading the community engagement work stream, and is responsible for introducing the corporate hijab into the CBA corporate wardrobe for Muslim women employees. She's also a strong advocate for Cushing's disease, being a patient herself and part of the Australian Pituitary Foundation Board and the World Alliance of that organisation, and sharing her personal story and experience to create awareness, provide support and drive change both domestically and globally. Welcome, Malini Raj. Yes. Our next panel member is Tanya Rhodes-Taylor, the Vice Principal of External Relations with the University of Sydney. As the Vice Principal, External Relations with the University of Sydney, Tanya leads work to improve coordination of the university's external engagement activities, in addition to overseeing the university's engagement with industry and the community. She has direct responsibility for the university's marketing and communications, museums and cultural engagement, government relations, media events, ambassador, global study, recruitment and mobility. I'm breathless reading all this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tanya Rhodes-Taylor. Our next panel member, we see her every day, don't we, on television, almost? And that is Tracy Spicer, a multi-Wakely award-winning author, journalist and broadcaster. Tracy Spicer, AM. You know what the AM means? She gets up in the morning. That's a good joke. She's a multiple Wakely award-winning author, journalist and broadcaster who has anchored national programs for the ABC TV and Radio, Network 10 and Sky News, the inaugural national convener of Women in Media. In 2019, she was named the New South Wales Premier's Woman of the Year and won the National Award for Excellence in Women's Leadership throughout Women and Leadership around Australia. Give that a big hand. There's more to come, though. She's also an Australian Financial Review 100 Women of Influence, an Agenda Setter of the Year by the website Women's Agenda, and has written, produced and presented documentaries on women and girls in Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda, Papua New Guinea and India. She is an ambassador for Action Aid, World Vision, the Cancer Council of New South Wales, the Potential Fund, Sister to Sister, and Purple Our World, and is the patron of the Pancreatic Cancer Alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Spicer, AM. Welcome, Tracy. Is Leah here? All right, we have an apology from Leah Wilson. She was going to be a panel member, but she's not feeling very well. Okay, Pallavi, it's over to you.
Thanks again, Stephen, the man with the golden voice. So we do have an apology from Leah Wilson. She is the CEO of Puffling, which is a recruitment company for anyone who's interested in part-time work. Unfortunately, she's unwell, and part of flexible practices are all about accommodating changes at the last minute, and I do hope she has a speedy recovery, but it means that we have more time with these lovely ladies on the stage as well. So I'm really looking forward to sharing the stage with them. And please, again, put your hands together for Tracy, Tanya and Marlene. If someone could just remove the empty chair, I did request that.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
No,
no, thanks. Tracy's multi-talented.
This is not just the empowerment, but the power of women.
Yes, indeed. And she's got the red jacket on as well. She's flexing her muscles. So as we know, it is New South Wales Women's Week, and we're here to celebrate achievements, but we're also here to discuss what are the areas, what are the ways and perhaps methods and things that we need to do to improve the plight for women. We've got such a diverse range of experience here, from media to academia, the university sector, as well as the banking sector, all women in very high positions, and a great opportunity to hear their reflections and their journeys as well. Because as we heard the New South Wales Minister for Women talk, there's a lot of personal journeys that people have along the way, and it'll be great to hear more about them today. So, in fact, trying to understand a bit more about how we can increase and engage the engagement and participation of women in the workforce or in any aspect of society, but particularly in the workforce, we have Marlene Raj. Now, she's very, very kindly agreed to share a bit of her story. She's a strong and brave patient advocate for Cushing's disease. She's actually a patient herself, And she juggles the senior role of the head of strategy for multicultural community banking at the Commonwealth Bank. I'm amazed with Marlene. Sometimes we'll be sharing text messages and she's at a function, and another time she might actually be getting the help that she needs in that area, in a hospital, for example. She is one of those multi-talented women who can juggle a lot of things, and I'm so grateful that she's here sharing her story today. Could you please share with us a bit about your journey and how you do juggle such a high-performing role with what you're going through it from time to time?
Thank you. So hi everyone, thank you for having me here today. So as Pallavi said, I have Cushing's disease. So for all of you who don't know what that is, Cushing's 101 is, it's caused by a tumour on your pituitary gland, and it causes secretion of hormones which impact your health in various ways. So I was diagnosed with Cushing's in 2013 after being misdiagnosed for about 18 years. And finally, when I got diagnosed with the disease, the first thing that came into my mind was, how am I going to manage this with work? I think that for all of us, work is very important, and having a mortgage, and I just thought, what am I going to do? And I thought that I would juggle it and try and manage, but the treatment for Cushing's disease is actually brain surgery, so I couldn't really hide it. So I told my employer, and they were wonderful. They just said, focus on your health first. I really didn't know how long I would be away from work. It could have been 1 month, it could have been 6 months with the complications, and so that's hard for an employer, because do they backfill your role? Do they just leave it? I was in the middle of leading a very big project as well, but they were wonderful. So had the surgery, I was in hospital in and out for about a month or so, and then another month to recover. Then going back to work, they didn't expect me to hit the ground running and do what I used to do. They were very flexible. They actually put together a plan for me on their own accord. Made sure that I had reduced hours, could come and go to follow-up appointments. So that made me want to work harder in my own time. I didn't mind, and I was actually doing more hours than I was expected to do, just because I was so grateful to them for the support that they had given me when I needed it. Then about 2 years went by, and then the symptoms started coming back, because it found out that the surgery wasn't as successful as they'd thought. And so I went to Dr. Google and found a medication which I found would work. So I went to my doctor and approached them, but it had horrendous side effects. So they said that it's probably not best that you work while you try and manage the medication. So I went to my boss again, once again, right in the middle of a big project, but they're wonderful again, didn't know how long I would be away for, and I ended up being away for about 4 to 5 months. And in that time, they just kept in contact with me. There was no pressure to come back. There was no pressure to work. They just wanted me to focus on my health. So I came back, and once again, it was like I could come and go as I please. And then I had another lot of brain surgery in 2018, and they're once again so wonderful. So I just think that the stats of like 55% increased level of engagement, level of stress, and turnover intention, reducing the turnover intention, I can just say from my personal experience that I really value. I didn't have to compromise on my role. It was there when I came back. Even my bonus in 1 year, I got the full bonus potential. So, and this is not only for illness, it's for people with caring responsibilities, people with other like cancer, like they've been really supportive, and I know that it's easier for a larger organisation. I think that smaller organisations may find it difficult, but being a large organisation, like I tell people that I'm there for the flexibility. They've given me the support that I need, and I think that that's for employers to give employees, that's really valuable.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marlene. I mean, you are a truly inspiring champion and warrior. I mean, it mustn't have been easy. Like, you have a lot of perseverance, grit, strength to have carried on.
But I think that taking that stress away from because I mean, we're all ambitious, we all want to do well at work and whatever, and we don't want to compromise that, and sometimes we compromise our health because of it. And I think that employers who understand that if employers have the pressure to rush back to work, they're not going to be productive anyway. So it's in their best interest to support you while you need it, and then you are going to give back tenfold, because my role is community engagement. It's not a 9-to-5 job. I've got functions 1 or 2 nights at least a week. Sometimes it's weekends, but I don't mind. I just think that I don't mind working late hours. It's not expected, but I just put in more because of what the support that they've given me.
Thanks, Marlene, and it's definitely deserving a round of applause. And I might bring Tracy in here, because this sounds like with Marlene we had a very positive experience of the experiences she had with the workplace. But Tracy, you've gone through a lot in your life as well, with discrimination, with the various battles you've had with harassment, cyberbullying. Perhaps you could share a bit about how your journey's been as well.
Yeah, I'd like to begin by also acknowledging the traditional owners and framing what I'm about to say by saying that everything that's experienced by someone like me, a privileged white woman in the media, is experienced exponentially by women of colour, those with disabilities, and Indigenous women as well. So we're talking about an intersectional approach here where some people cop this stuff a lot worse than I did. I worked in the media for 30 years, a very male-dominated industry. I went in as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young girl from the outer suburbs of Brisbane, and it was quite a shock to realise that my value was not in my intellect or what was in my heart or my head, but it was in how I appeared. So constant comments about blondes are stupid, you'll never make it in this industry, stick your chest out more, the audience needs something to look at after my first night of news reading. These kind of comments were pretty much daily. And I don't really want to dwell on them too much, for the simple fact that I think we've come an awful long way. The Me Too movement in the last 2 years has brought tremendous advances, and a lot of the wonderful speakers who've come up here today have spoken about their families. And I want to reflect upon my family for a moment. My grandmother was the 5th smartest girl in Queensland when she was 14 years of age. She left school at 15 because her family didn't think it made any sense to educate a girl, and got married not long after. My mother took it a step further at her generation, because we sit up here on the shoulders of giants. My mum was the first female courier driver in Queensland, an achievement greeted with the headline in the newspaper, "Who would have thought women can drive after all?" Then ahead to my generation, where in the media in the last 30 years, I've seen generations leave because of this kind of relentless sexual harassment, lack of leadership opportunities, and gender pay gap. However, what I've seen in the last 3 years are tremendous changes across all industries. Changes to the structure, changes to flexible work. When I was back at Channel 10, my husband has always been a 50-50 parent. And he would bring our babies in and change their nappies in front of the other camera guys to be a role model, to say men need to be more hands-on with this stuff. Men need flexible work as well, to be parents, or to look after their health, or to do whatever their hobbies and interests are. And people used to say to my husband, "Oh, are you on babysitting duty today?" And he'd say, "No, I'm actually the child's father." So we've come an awfully long way, I think, and I'm very excited about what this movement in the last 2 years has achieved with regards to people sharing their stories. Tarana Burke, who started the Me Too movement, said sharing your story with anyone is the most powerful thing you can do. Doesn't have to be the media, doesn't have to be the powers that be, doesn't have to be putting in a formal complaint, but just speaking your truth to yourself or somebody else and being supported in that is tremendously powerful. And I'm excited, actually, for this New South Wales Women's Week that we're talking about these issues so openly.
That's really, really great. Thanks, Tracy, for sharing that. And isn't it great to hear that your husband, we'll call him Tracy's husband, she's not his wife, he's Tracy's husband, called himself one of the carers and shares 50-50. I think a lot of advancement is also attitudinal. You know, if we get the right attitudes, the right institutional frameworks in place, we can certainly encourage and engage more women in the workplace that know they can also have jobs, and men do share the housework with them, and they do share child caring responsibilities and so on and so forth. So it was really good to hear. Tanya, would you like to add anything at all to any journeys that you may have had or that you've seen? You have the University of Sydney with lots of different policies and practices.
So I'd like to echo Tracy's point about how much things have changed in our generation. So I remember my first job interview where I was asked what my plans were for when I was going to have a baby. I was 17. I didn't even have a boyfriend, let alone have a baby. And we have moved on so much since then. But families are interesting as well. You know, I'm the first person in my family to stay on school past 15. And my mum and dad were bemused, I think, by my career and my career choices, and having to explain to them why you were doing the things that you were doing, that you weren't going straight out to work at the age of 16, that you weren't going to try and go to university, that you weren't, in my case, choose not to have children because there was other things that you wanted to do. The fact that we can now openly have that conversation, I think, is really quite important. And the fact that we're learning not to judge each other, because we do have a tendency to do that, but learning not to judge each other for our life choices, I think, is really quite important. And to support each other in those decisions, because everybody has a unique contribution to make, and recognising that our contributions are of equal value, even if they are different from someone else's, I think is really important. Thinking about how we work in the workplace to structure this, of course we have policies and frameworks to try and support things like flexible working, but those policies and frameworks have actually got to reflect the reality of people's lives. So they've got to be flexible enough that we can actually flex them to support people. And so when we're talking about parental leave, you know, we have explicit paternity leave, because actually in order to free up a lot of women, it'd be better if we freed up the men. And men have got to, I think, admit that actually caring for their children is something that they want to do, and it's not a lesser job. So putting policies in place to make that happen, I think, is important. We have a domestic violence policy. So as part of our flexible work arrangements, you have days allocated that you can take if you need to, if you are a victim of domestic violence, or if you're supporting someone who's a victim of domestic violence, because, I'm sorry, that's still a current reality. And people are much less likely to share that if they can't get the time off work to try and sort it. So having the sorts of policies which allow you to shape the hours that you work, that measure your contribution, that don't actually measure the amount of time you take in the office, I think is very important and has to be realistic. But it's got to be more than policy, because policy, you can put in place a policy, but if there isn't the culture to support it, then it is just that. It's a policy, and you're entirely dependent on your manager as to whether they want to flex it or not. So if I think about University of Sydney, you know, universities are traditional organisations, but you have to walk the talk. So if you think about leadership at my university, the senior executive team, the university executive, the Senate, which is the equivalent of our external board, and our academic board are all at least 50-50 in gender. I don't know many commercial organisations that can say that, but we are a multi-billion-dollar organisation. But that's because we've tried to do that, and we've tried to put in place the frameworks to support young women who are coming through, to support academic women that are coming through, because they're particularly vulnerable, especially in the early days of their career when you're living from grant to grant, and many young academics leave because they can't afford to eat. And if you don't have young academics coming up, then you're never going to have female vice chancellors, because you've got to be an academic to be a vice chancellor. So you have to actually think about how you're going to put in place those policies and actively support that. And actually that needs the men in our community to stand up and do it, because if you're trying to overcome prejudice, both from male and female, you need both men and women to help you do that. We've gone a long way. We've got a very long way to go to ensure that those attitudes are normalised and that we are the norm and not the exception.
Thanks very much for sharing that, Tanya. And just touching on that, exactly right. It's not men versus women. It's men and women working together in unison for something that is good for all of us. And it's great to hear one of our male champions saying hear, hear to that. We are all working together, and it's not a combat of men versus women, but something that works for the good of everyone when we engage about 50% of the Australian population, which is women. And I'd also like to ask all of you a bit about your self-care tips and resilience tips. I know, Tanya, you go to yoga very early in the morning, but Marlene, maybe you could also share some of the things that you've done because you've gone through so many things yourself.
I think that, I do personal training as well, and also I volunteer at the Starlight Foundation on Saturday, every second Saturday. That gives me a bit of an outlet, and I'm also in a choir. Spending time with friends as well.
How does she fit it all into her day? We don't know, but isn't that a great point about not only physical exercise, but volunteer work? A lot of the studies which look into mental health problems or people who are feeling depressed, they often encourage people to do volunteer work so that they can reach out to someone perhaps who's less fortunate than themselves. You know, as the saying goes, you can lose yourself in the service of others, in that you start to be connected much more with that oneness of humanity. So thanks for sharing that, Marlene. Tracy, you've been through so many different things. I know you've said that you don't want to dwell on them, but I am going to quote one from your book, The Good Girl Gone Bad, that you were in an era when you were told to quit before you're too long in the tooth and to lose 2 inches off your backside.
That is absolutely correct. And self-care is very wrapped up in this conversation. I want to particularly direct these remarks to a lot of the wonderful grassroots advocates and activists in the room, particularly our outstanding 13-year-old, also Violet, who's a living legend, and the wonderful women of the Lisa Harnham Foundation, because I know how hard you incredible, incredible women and girls work. When I lost my job at Network 10 due to pregnancy discrimination, I took them to the federal court and started a national conversation in the media about the 1 in 2 women who experience maternity discrimination. I wanted to go the whole way through the court process, but I'll never forget this one day where I collapsed on the floor of the lounge room. I had had mastitis 5 times, postnatal depression, and I just couldn't go on anymore. And my husband, who is also a fighter, said, look, fighting the good fight is important. And we're going through a time in history globally where there's a lot of activism, and it is important to join together in solidarity to be the change that you want to see, but not at the cost of your own health. So I say to each and every one of you, yes, fight the good fight, but self-care is the most important thing. We are all in this together. You can go a certain way in calling things out, in taking action, but if it comes at the diminishment of your own health or your own family, understand there are others out there, connect with them for strength and solidarity, and know that if you step back, they will step forward.
Great point, Tracy. Thank you so much. I think a lot of the women and the men, but we're focusing on women today, a lot of us women in the room have a lot of passion and a lot of fight in us to fight for what we believe in and the causes that we stand for. But as Tracy said, we've also got to make sure that in fighting that good fight, we also take care of ourselves. And sometimes there are lines that we have to draw. We want to keep fighting. But I know from my own experience, there are choices about which fight to take on and which one to just let go and say, I'll just let that be and focus my energies on the other things that I'm doing. Tanya, I know I mentioned that you do yoga in the mornings, but I'm sure there's a lot of other things that you juggle into your amazing schedule. Is it 5 a.m. that your yoga class is? My goodness.
So one of the things I'd like to share is, so I moved to Australia 3 years ago. I moved from the UK and I had a big network of friends in the UK and a big support network, and I sang in a choir and all those kinds of things. And I came here and my husband came 6 months after me, so I had the first 6 months here by myself. And I thought, that's fine. I'll just apply myself to the job. And 3 months in, I realised that actually that wasn't working. I was applying myself to the job and I was coping with the daily FaceTime and all those kinds of things, but I knew no one. And the only friends that I had were in work. And the thing about work friends is that you end up talking about work. And I needed to be able to talk about something else. And so one of the biggest things that I did is I reached out to the independent person who'd sat on my interview panel. I reached out to the headhunter that had found me. I reached out to the few people I knew but weren't work connected, and said, I need some friends. Can you help me? Can you help me make some friends? And one of these women was amazing. She set up a series of play dates for me. So she identified women that she thought would appreciate me and who she thought I would get on with, and set up a whole series of basically speed dates for me. And as a consequence of that, I ended up with 3 or 4 friends who I talk to regularly. My husband is amazing and he is my best friend, but I can't tell him everything, and I certainly can't whinge to him about him. So female friendship, and actually male friendship as well, because I've got some great guy friends as well. Friendship is really important, and the thing is, when we're really stressed and when we're really busy and we're trying to fit in the exercise classes and all those kinds of things, the thing that we often forget is our friends. So in terms of self-care, I'd say that's probably one of the most important things, but also sometimes one of the most challenging things to keep going.
Thanks, Tanya, for sharing that. Because as you said, social support networks are so important, but it's hard when you come as a new person to the country. My parents who are in the audience, they came here as new migrants about 40 years ago. There are other people in the audience here who've come new to this country. We have a lot of people from the migrant background who are helped a lot by the Community Migrant Resource Centre and other networks that are out there. But isn't that so touching to hear your story? I mean, people think that, no, it's only a certain type of maybe person from a certain background who doesn't speak English very well. They may be feeling isolated, but it's also anyone who's new to the country, and just taking that step to ask for help. I think sometimes women, that's not the easiest thing for us to do. We're used to doing everything for ourselves, fending for ourselves, and whether we can ask for help or not, is that a sign of weakness or is that okay? That can apply to men as well, but with women, you're often the caregiver and taking on lots of different responsibilities. So it isn't easy when you come to a new country, and I definitely reinforce that notion of seeking out friends. There are so many different ways to make friends these days as well. Now with the the advent of the internet, you've got meetup groups, you've got all these different social websites, but also, meeting face-to-face with people in your workplace who can then maybe connect you with others or through different associations as well. Now, I might also start to talk a bit more about the institutional and workplace responses, because as was mentioned earlier, we can talk a lot about things, but what we also need is some practical steps. We need to hear more about what action is being taken at an institutional level, what sort of policies are working, maybe what sort of policies are not working, or that we need more to be done to counter things that may be blocking or causing obstacles to women participating in the workplace, such as if they do experience bullying or harassment, or they experience domestic or family violence. So Marlene, at CBA, could you share perhaps some of the examples that have worked and perhaps some of the things maybe that haven't worked as well, or that you're looking to improve or implement new things?
Yes, so in regards to bullying, basically we have a zero tolerance culture for bullying. So we have compulsory e-learning that all of us have to do in terms of what is harassment, what is discrimination, and what is bullying, and also external channels that we can go to if we need help or we see something that's not right. So there's a speak up hotline. We've also have these 5 leadership habits that we are, that have gone from the CEO right down to all levels of management, and basically there's a speak up culture, constructively challenging, giving and receiving feedback, and self-reflection. So, and all of our leaders have in their one-on-ones with team members, they make sure that they address anything that is of concern to every employee. So we have the opportunity to speak up and know that it's welcomed and not penalised. Also, in terms of our overall strategy, it's all about celebrating difference. So we have employee networks for all pillars of diversity, so gender, culture, age, disability, and then Indigenous as well. And LGBTI. So in that, they're very active and difference is celebrated. So in that sense, we hope that people aren't discriminated or bullied based on their difference, but rather welcomed and the benefits of diversity are celebrated. Also, in terms of how we portray some of the difficult issues, we've got a Community Voices event series, and this is in partnership for Mosaic, the Cultural Diversity Network, and our LGBTI network called Unity. And we had a series of events last year which delved into some of the issues facing these communities in terms of identity and belonging, bullying, rainbow families, and I think by having these people, so we had panellists, internal and external, talk about their experiences in terms of bullying and other experiences that they've had, and the challenges that they've faced and the impact it had on them personally, professionally, and I think that opened up a lot of discussion, and we've followed up on that. So I think that that's one way of dealing with the bullying, by demonstrating by real life stories and examples about the impact it actually has, and it actually makes people think about their behaviour. And also in terms of specific initiatives, so Steve touched on before that I introduced the corporate hijab into the wardrobe for CBA a few years ago, and that, I'm not Muslim and it wasn't for me, but it was just something that I thought, it was around the time of the Link Cafe siege. There was a large discrimination that I saw in the community, and I saw one of our staff members, a customer said something that wasn't very nice to her, and I thought and then so she actually was contemplating not wearing the hijab because she thought that it had jeopardised her promotion opportunities. She just wanted to look like everyone else, and I didn't think that that was right, because we have a culture of bring your whole self to work, so people shouldn't have to compromise their culture and religion by coming to work, let alone in the community. So long story, but I got a group of Muslim women together, we designed the hijab, we got our corporate designer, Lisa Ho, to design it and put our logo on it, and now it's part of the uniform. So that just shows to our Muslim women that we support them in terms of any harassment and bullying, and we don't tolerate it. If our customers want to discriminate or bully our staff, we don't want them as a customer, even if they have millions of dollars. And I think that knowing that our staff know that they can bring their whole selves to work has done a lot with that culture. So I think that in terms of bullying, it's creating that culture, that supportive culture, to know that it's an organisation where you can speak up if something happens and something will be done about it. And then, there's the external channels of support. So, and then the domestic violence, we also have unlimited leave. But we're also focusing on empowering women with financial literacy and financial independence. So you all have books in your bags. That's the Financial Wellbeing Guide for Women. We've created financial abuse flyers, awareness, and translated them into 15 languages, as well as elder abuse. So we're trying to support women so that they can gain independence, so then they have more they feel more empowered more to deal with their situations that they're in.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Marlene. Tracy, I saw you nodding your head a lot there. So what do you think in terms of, from a, like, you're not working within an organisation at the moment. So do you think, what are your views on whether those sort of policies could help, would be helpful, maybe need to be changed, improved in any way?
Oh, first of all, congratulations, Malini, on what you and the bank are doing. That is absolutely tremendous, and it makes me very happy to hear that. Yeah, just so impressive. What we noticed when we were researching the documentary about Me Too, Silent No More, we went to a lot of places that were corporate top end of town and also really, really difficult areas for workers, remote and regional, women working in fruit packing sheds in Shepparton, isolated areas. So I suppose both ends of the spectrum. And I actually see some very impressive things happening in both of those areas, and I want to give you two examples. One example is the great Hospo Voice campaign by the Hospitality Union, which is going out there and educating people. 9 out of 10 hospitality workers are groped and grabbed, let's face it, and a lot of them are either young women or single mothers working odd hours to try to pay the bills, so they're very vulnerable people. That campaign has had tremendous success on the important changing culture within those workplaces. Because you touched on this, Tanya, that the policies and procedures are fantastic, but if they're not accompanied by cultural change, then not much is going to happen. The other great stuff I've seen is at the top end of town, where they're instituting things like robust bystander training. Have any of you done good bystander training here? Oh my goodness, it is absolutely priceless. So let me give you, through storytelling, one example of bystander training. Say you regularly go to a meeting or a board meeting or a committee meeting, and one person says inappropriate things all the time, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, but you feel like the individual, you can't do anything about that on your own. So you say to one of the other people who usually attends those meetings before the next one, look, I'm going to call this out, I'm going to call it out politely, could you please back me up when I do that? Or alternatively, could you please call this out and I will back you up? So bystander training gives you the tools to be able to join with someone in calling out something racist or sexist or ableist or bigoted when someone says it. Because if you've ever seen the sexual violence pyramid, the broad base of the pyramid is supported by attitudes and beliefs, which leads to the behaviours of the sexist and racist jokes. And no one wants that kind of environment to work in. So by being able to call it out safely, it makes the world of difference. The other thing that's happening at the top end of town internationally, which is making a difference, is actually having more diversity and inclusion in leadership positions. Because as the Minister Bronnie Taylor said, if you've got more different thinking in the room, that's good for everybody. The other thing that's happening, and this is a little bit lateral, is that people are being given bonuses if their department sees an increase in reporting of sexual harassment. Now that sounds counterintuitive. No one wants to see an increase in sexual harassment. But the increase in the reporting of it means that there's trust in the workplace for people to call it out. Because a lot of the problem is people are saying, oh, we have an independent hotline, we have a zero tolerance policy. That's great, but if there's no trust in the workplace, no one's going to call it out. So you've got to build that trust within individual departments. The call to action I'd like to make today, and where I saw a lot of action missing, was in the middle sector. So we're talking things like family businesses, franchises, small to medium-sized businesses, because there's not necessarily the money there or the education or the time to put things into place. So I'd love to make a call to action for whatever business you've got. Have a think this week about what you can do to support women and minorities and anyone experiencing bullying or harassment.
Thanks very much, Tracy. And I might just ask, both yourself and Tanya have done the bystander training. So if anyone's interested in doing that in the room here today, how do they access that training?
So we, some of you in the room will be aware that we had a bit of a cultural issue with our colleges. And as part of the response of trying to resolve the cultural issue, we actually gave vast numbers of people within the university bystander training. So we're talking about student leaders, we're talking about within the colleges, we're talking about lecturers and others who volunteered for it. So we actually employed someone external to help us with that, and there's organisations that can help you do that. There's also voluntary organisations as well. If people want to find out a bit more about it, then I can certainly find out how we did it and who we used. But we thought it was essential because, if you're trying to change a culture, you've got to empower people to change the culture. And if you are slightly upfront, like some people in the room may be, and are willing to step in, then that's easier to do than if you don't know what to do. So the training makes all the difference from that perspective.
I'm sorry, I'm going to plug another university. It's the Mate Bystander program at Griffith University in Queensland. They do external programs outside the university, corporate and government, and they are some of the most incredible women I've ever met, actually.
Would you like to share anything else with what the University of Sydney is doing or looking to do for the future?
Sure. So in terms of thinking about diversity in the workforce, and actually I touched on it earlier about enabling women to rise through the ranks and to ensure that we've got a diverse group of people rising through the ranks. We have a cultural and linguistic diversity program for women at the university where basically members of the senior executive agree to take on and work with, and I'm one of these mentors, it's an absolute delight, but work with colleagues from a culturally and linguistic diverse background to try and open your networks for them, because a lot of this is about social capital. And if you don't have the social capital in order to enter other people's networks, that can be really difficult. So the whole point of this programme is really about opening your networks, opening your social capital to others, supporting people, making those introductions, giving them advice. So you're a sponsor rather than a mentee. There's lots of mentorship programmes out there, and they'll tell you what you should do, but sometimes it's really hard to make that happen, and this is about making that happen. The other thing I'd say about culture as well is that universities are really argumentative places. So basically academics are employed to argue with each other. That's how academic progress works. So, you know, someone comes up with an idea and they progress that and someone disagrees with them. Sometimes that disagreement can become quite heated, and sometimes people don't realise that the disagreement that you might have with an academic colleague is not the same level of disagreement that you should have with a professional colleague, for example, a non-academic colleague. So we've worked really hard on the principle of disagreeing well, and we think actually the way society is at the moment, this is something that stems much further, because we have lots of instances where our academics say something externally that's not popular, and the number of death threats they receive on social media and in person is just stunningly awful. But that whole principle of disagreeing well, you can disagree, but you can do it respectfully. You can explain why you disagree. You can accept that someone else has a different opinion, and it doesn't mean that life is going to come to an end and you leave friends. So trying to embed that sort of culture through an organisation, we do it through training, we do it through modelling, is really important, because we will disagree with each other. That's normal. But it doesn't have to be the screaming row that we have with our families on Christmas Day. You know, it can be something that's more respectful, where we just say, I respect your opinion, don't agree with it, but I agree that you can have it. And enough of that, there's not enough of that happens at the moment.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, communication is such a key in so many facets of life. Constructive communication, not communication which can become destructive when you're yelling at each other or not respecting the other person's right to hold a different opinion and just agree to disagree. Absolutely. So are there any other areas you think particularly that we really need to see some improvement, some advancement, some changes? I mean, you've mentioned a few things here today, and I'm also interested, and Tanya, you mentioned earlier that you've got the 50-50 ratio at the senior board or executive level. And
All our senior boards, yeah.
all of them. And so was that a target or a quota, or has that just been achieved in, how was that systematically achieved?
No, it wasn't a target or quota. We didn't set targets or quotas, but what we're quite conscious about is that when we're interviewing, for example, we try to make sure that each interview panel, we have 50-50 in terms of interviewees, because what we find is, and I do this in my team as well, so what we find is that boys have a tendency to describe themselves in their CVs in a way that would make them instantly interviewable, and girls don't, women don't. We have a tendency to talk down our achievements. So I've just done my staff reviews, performance reviews for this year, and the women that work for me, I start off with saying, so what went well? And the first thing they do is tell me where they're disappointed. And this is a sweeping generalisation, but I'm sorry it was true in my case. And I ask the guys, so what went well? And they tell you how they've nailed it. We do that when we're applying for jobs as well. We don't talk up what we've done, and so what I find is that actually, if you look at interview panels, and you look at the people that you're interviewing, if you decide to take a couple of extra people, and there could be guys or girls who don't seem to be quite meeting the criteria, and you interview them nonetheless, you can be quite pleasantly surprised, because people do have a tendency to do that. The other thing that we've done is in this context, so we have a thing called a panel pledge. So significant numbers of us have signed a pledge that says, when we're going to speak on a panel, we ask how many other women are going to speak. And it's both guys and girls who have signed that. It's not just a women thing. And if there are no other women on the panel, or if you find out you're the only woman on the panel, which happens to me a lot, and I suspect happens to a few of the people in this room, you ask why. And if you do end up speaking at an event where there are no other women on the panel, you actually say at the beginning, and I've done this in international conferences, it takes some courage, you say at the beginning, I'm sorry I'm the only woman on this panel. I did ask the organisers why there were no other women, and they said that there was nobody else qualified or there was nobody else available. So those of you that are in the room, if you know someone else who could have been on this panel, could you please tell the organisers? Yeah. It makes such a difference, because suddenly you get all these ideas. And also, if you're asked on a panel, people are really scared if there's not another woman on it. So simple things like that, for all of us who speak externally, any one of us can do that. It doesn't have to be done through a panel pledge, but we did it as an organisational approach to trying to engage more women in the public space.
Thanks, Tanya. And Marlene, I might bring you in here as well to talk a bit more about some things that you'd like to share.
So I think that also the language used in job descriptions needs to be reviewed. So there's a lot of, so we've got a division, Enterprise Services, and it's a very technical division, but shaping the language to more feminine language, including flexibility, making all roles flex, encourages more female applicants to those roles that are traditionally male-focused. And also, in terms of promotional opportunities, there's sometimes the assumption that females wouldn't put their hand up because they have to take care of children, or they wouldn't want to travel, but that is an assumption, and they may have a parent who's a husband who's 50-50 carer, or even more so they are the main breadwinner. So there's that assumption that's being made that females don't want to progress their career, or they have to juggle responsibilities. So I think that, and also with balanced interview panels, we also have making sure that the interview panel is culturally diverse. That adds a different layer onto it to make sure that culturally diverse talent is reviewed. In our talent meetings, we also have a culturally diverse talent matrix. We've got the sponsorship programs as well. So just opening up those networks, I agree, is so important to progressing women.
That's exactly right, because I think, Tracy, you said right in the beginning the intersectionality point, because it's about gender, but it's also about the possible intersection of gender with race, or with disability, or with other areas, your geographic location, and the insights that people who come from different backgrounds can add, whether it's because we have people who've come here from Young today, or we've had people who've come here from Hornsby, or from Parramatta locals, Strathfield, or out in Penrith. People have different experiences that they can bring to the table when they've grown up in a different way. So they've been exposed to different environments as well. So I think that's really, really a lot of pearls of wisdom that have been shared today, and I really do hope that one of the take-home messages, there'll be many that all of you have, but is that energetic spirit that I've been feeling from everyone on this panel today, to really not take no for an answer, to keep fighting when you need to fight, and to persevere despite any challenges, struggles that come along the way, and to forge those friendships and networks, because sometimes it's women who can also be each other's worst enemy. We as women, I can see a lot of people nodding, we need to help each other, and men need to help us as well, of course, but we all need to work together as much as possible, trying to bear in mind the goal. You might have personal differences, personality differences, whatever it may be, but for example, everyone coming here today, we're here to advance the cause of women and engaging them more on the workplace. So even if there's someone you don't like in the room personally, you are here today on a common platform. But I really hope that everyone here does appreciate each other in the room, and we have a spirit of solidarity. And I think it's probably time now, unless you'd all like to share one more thing before we conclude the session. No, I think you've been really, really generous with your time and the personal journeys and anecdotes that you've shared. Please put your hands together for our panel. Malini Raj, Tanya Rhodes-Taylor and Tracy Spicer. Thanks very much. Okay, and now we might move on to the award presentations by our wonderful male MC, Mr. Stephen Sim.
Thank you. That was brilliant. I learnt so much from that. My conclusion, as we thank our panellists, please, Tanya Rhodes-Taylor, Tracy Spicer, AM, and Malini Raj. And what about our brilliant facilitator here? And so, as Pallavi mentioned, we're now going to move on to some awards. Just by way of background, and a big leap forward for women has been in women's sport this last decade. By way of background, while we're just organising, I played rugby league many years ago for Parramatta, the Parramatta Eels. You can tell by the broken fingers, broken nose and that. But I've come to love women's sport. I'm loving every moment of the Women's World Cup, watching the Australians, the Indians, the West Indians. It's just sensational. The women's rugby union, Charlotte Casling and the Sevens, they're brilliant, they're sensational. And my good friend, I'm so proud of her, Jessica Surgis, she's only 19. 2 weeks ago, she was voted the best women's rugby league player in the world. A wonderful ambassador for women. And we'll try and get her along next year for this forum or any other forum, okay? So we're just doing some photographs there, and then we're going to move on to the awards, or continue with the awards, which is going to be a bit shorter because we've already done half of them, which is great. So we're going to pick up some time there. I think I should tell you the story about the frog. Frog walks into a bank. I think it was the Commonwealth Bank. He jumps onto the counter. He sees the teller, lovely lady. He knows the name is Patricia Wack, got the nameplate there on the counter. He jumps up and he says, "My name's Kermit Jagger, my dad's Mick Jagger, and I want a loan." And she looked at a frog. She thought of a frog jumping up, says he's Kermit Jagger. His dad's Mick Jagger and he wants a loan. She said, "Oh, you're going to need some security." He gets out this beautiful porcelain black elephant. It's only about the size of your fist. Beautiful shape, obviously very fine crafts work. He said, "Here's my security." She didn't know what to do, so she said, "I'll get the bank manager. Would you wait one moment?" She Kermit said, yeah, get him, he knows me, he knows my dad too. Bank manager comes out and she says, Patricia Wack says, here's a frog, he says he's Kermit Jagger, his dad's Mick Jagger, and he wants a loan, and this is his security. The bank manager looks, he said, yeah, I know him. It's okay, it's a knick-knack, Miss Paddy Wack. Give the frog a loan, his old man's a Rolling Stone. You may clap. All right, on with the awards. Now, we're a bit out of order, so Pallavi, if you come up, please, and I'll follow your direction. And we have Melissa Montero on stage, please. Pallavi, and we've already done this award, so we'll buy it. Okay. Mrs. Nimesha Gupta, representing the Consul General of India. Pallavi, Melissa, to present this award. It's the Young Champion of the Year, and I'll get this note out of the way, so just bear with me for one moment. So it's the Young Champion of the Year, and Pallavi, I need you over here. I know how to say Sachin Tendulkar, I know how to say MS Dhoni, but I don't know how to pronounce half of these. So now this is for the Young Champion of the Year. Would you read out their names, please?
I will indeed. It's a huge pleasure to be able to do that. And I might just also acknowledge our CMRC Chair, Warren, is on the stage with Melissa. Thank you. And Mrs. Nimesha Gupta, always looking so graceful, representing the Indian Consul General today. Thanks for coming today. So, without any further ado, our Young Champion of the Year, Millie and Kushi Dakshin.
Well done. Okay, now, a Young Champion of the Year are two sister students at the Macquarie Fields Selective School, and they have been making a great impact to the society by using their unique talent of speed painting, you think about that, to raise funds and help various organisations and charities such as Lupus Foundation, the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, the Rotary Club of Strathfield, the Indian Australian Cultural Association of Illawarra Incorporated, the Canberra Indian Council, Elak Vigilay, Siwa Australia, etc. And to date, these young sisters have raised almost $28,000 by their speed painting. And present the award. And we have Bishan Bedi here. That's you. My favourite cricketer in the 70s was Bishan Bedi, the Indian. And he wore the turban just like you, sir. So away we go. All right, a big hand. Now, the next one we're going to do... Which one do you want to do next? That's the young... Okay, we have now the Senior Champion of the Year. And the winner is, if you could please, Pallavi.
Feels like the Oscars. All right.
It is.
Bindi Shah and Susan Day.
Congratulations. Now, these two aspiring women work tirelessly for the betterment of children's education and women's health. They are both working mums, but still find time to raise funds for various charities. And over the last 10 years, they have raised more than, waiting for this, 149,000. Wow, wow, wow. By holding garage sales, themed night fundraisers, clothes and book swaps, making and selling candles, morning and afternoon teas. That's a lot of cup of teas, isn't it, for 149,000? They run this through their family initiative, Wise Kids World. In March 2017, they both took part in the Sydney Coast Trek. It was a 60-kilometre trek and raised over $9,000 for the Fred Hollows Foundation. They both received the New South Wales Government Community Award and the Indian Star Club Award in 2017. Our Senior Champions of the Year are Bindi Shah and Susan Day. All right, could I please call on stage one of the legends of Australian federal politics, and now the Mayor of Hornsby, the great Philip Ruddock. Philip, if you could. Thank you, sir. Well, sir, do you want to say a quick word? Yeah. Do you want to hear from Philip? Yeah, unscripted, unannounced. Philip Ruddock, ladies and gentlemen.
What a high risk. Can I share in the acknowledgement of country and pay my respects to elders past and present? Can I congratulate Pallavi on her excellent work in bringing so many of you together? It's a marvellous occasion. I don't know a lot about talented women. I'm married to one. I've got two brilliant daughters, and I have to say I give them every encouragement. But I do remember this. I am probably responsible for appointing more women to the High Court of Australia than any other politician. I can remember one of them saying to me, "Be careful how you announce my appointment." Because I wanted to be clear that I have been appointed on the basis of my skill and my talent to do the job, not just because I'm a woman. And I think it's very, very important that we recognise the skills and talents that people have, and we give them great credit when it is due. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Philip. All right, the award now. Pallavi, which one will we do? We're out of order, but we're making this all happen. It's the Initiative of the Year by an individual. And the winner is, although I can read this one, this is the Academy Awards. Pallavi, thank you.
There are two award winners. One is Janelle Spate and the other is Dahlia Carezi.
Okay, as they come up to the stage, Janelle Sprate is a member of the Rotary Club of Virunga and Rotary International. She is actively working in various organisations, including the CMRC, the Multicultural Integration Community Support, the Hornsby Kringai Multicultural Network, Novus Foundation, and the DISH, which is an organisation to feed the homeless and disadvantaged in the in the Hornsby district and beyond. In October 2019, Janelle organised Flavours with Stories from Afar in Turramurra to promote their cultures and traditions to the wider community. Persian, South African and Japanese communities were invited to participate. Through MICS, Janelle runs a series of successful events connecting different cultures through film, food, art, music and teaching. She was the event manager for a film and food cultural evening in Gordon in 2019. The film is titled New Old Stories from Abroad. Persian, Spanish and Chinese cultures were the main participants in the program. But MICS has also featured Korean musicians on the evening as part of that great event. The film participants were ageing migrants from CALD community local to the Hornsby area, and this film will be screening again this year at the Gordon Library as part of the Kringai Council's Harmony Day in 2020. Now, with Dahlia, comes from a refugee background. Yes, there you are. And is passionate about making a difference in people's lives. She has volunteered with organisations such as the Smith Family, where she was a facilitator for the Little Kid Big Dream program, where she encouraged young people to pursue education. Wonderful ideal. She's also volunteered with the Miracle Babies Foundation, where she worked with mothers who had sick or premature babies. Additionally, she worked as part of a youth team as a mentor to refugee and migrant youth. Dahlia has also worked on several health-related projects whilst completing her medical degree. She now works as a doctor, doing great justice to a noble profession by improving the lives and health and well-being of women and the wider community. Ladies and gentlemen, the Initiative Award individual, Janelle and Dahlia. photograph. Did we get the photograph? Yeah, all done. Thank you. We still have one more, Philip. Oh, yes. Yes, please, Philip, of course. This one? Yeah. It's the last one.
I think so.
Yeah.
And could you also call it Wendy,
Yeah.
Tracy and Marley?
Okay. All right. We have one more award, and we can't let this slip by without having Wendy Lindsay, MP, please, the state member for East Hills. Give her a big hand. Malini, where are you? Malini Raj, sorry. Thank you. And of course, Tracy Spicer, AM. Thanks, Tracy. Now, this is the Initiative Award of the Year award by a group. I'll hand over the announcement to...
Okay, so we had so many outstanding nominations for all the categories. Given that this is the last one, I just wanted to mention that everybody is a champion, anyone who nominated. Hopefully that's one of the take-home messages from today also. It's about getting out there, having a go, putting yourself forward. Now, we again had to have 2 joint winners because there's so many people who are doing such excellent work. So we've also already recognised Aileen and Linda Lemon for the Initiative of the Year award group with the work they're doing with the Lisa Harnham Foundation. But we also could not stop ourselves from recognising another outstanding group, and their founding member is Viji Dhanayathan. She is the founding member of the Tamil Women's Development Group, which was formed in July 2002 with assistance from Rugmini Venkatraman, the manager of Baronia Multicultural Services at the time. And Stephen will read the rest of the description. But please put your hands together for Viji Dhanyanathan.
Thank you, Pallavi. Now, Viji is the founding member of the Tamil Women's Development Group, which was formed in July 2012 with the assistance from the Rugmini Venkatraman, the manager of the Baronia Multicultural Services at that time. The Tamil Women Development Group work is to assist Tamil asylum seeker families, especially single women and with children. The work the organisation is doing is all-encompassing, from sourcing household goods to arranging individual tutors for the children whose education was interrupted for many years due to war, and what they do is get them together for women to alleviate social isolation. They run workshops for women to help them integrate into the Australian community. What wonderful work you do, and you and your organisation are worthy women. The Tamil Women's Development Group, the Initiative Award winner for a group. Thank you. Okay, can I invite all the award winners onto stage, please, for a group photograph with our VIPs. Thank you. All the award winners on stage. Thank you. Are you having a good time here today? Oh, so you're not having a good time. Are you having a good time? Yeah, it's brilliant. And you know what? We should have more men here, learning and understanding the needs of women and how to better society. And also put the vote to them that we give women sports people equal pay, and equal pay throughout the community. Do you agree with me? You with me? Thank you. Now, Now, the rule is if you can't see the camera can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our award winners. Congratulations. And thank you to all our fabulous panellists. Okay, we're almost at the end of the program. I'll just wait for my boss, Pallavi. So, Pallavi, we done all the photos that we need to do?
Just might also acknowledge Mr. Stepan Kirkasharian. He's our long-standing supporter in the multicultural community, former chair of the Community Relations Commission, former president of the Anti-Discrimination Board, but it doesn't stop there because now he is the chair of the Community Languages Board and many, many other things. He also is a board member on the National Australia Day Council. Thanks very much, Mr. Stepan Kirkasharian, for coming today.
All right, before closing, we need to thank a number of people. And firstly, I'd like to thank the New South Wales Department of Women for their generous grant and sponsoring this event. To our sponsors that made this event possible, to the Commonwealth Bank in particular, Malini Raj. Thank you, Malini. Sharma's Kitchen. The fabulous University of Sydney, who win premiership after premiership on the football field. AFEA, AFEA, thank you so much for your support. Survivor Watch, we thank you all for your generosity and support. To our keynote speaker, the Minister for Women, Mental Health and other portfolios, the fabulous Honourable Bronwyn Taylor, MP. To our panellists, Tracy Spicer, and to our award winners and our other panellists, thank you for Mr. Harmonian Singh Walia for your photography. We're at Champion. Hello, mate. Bishan, hello, mate. They make an event. The sound person, we're just the facilitators that carry it, but it's a photographer that has the memories that help promote the event for next year and people to know what you're on about. To the fabulous Park Royal and their staff for the fabulous event here in Parramatta. To the CEO of CMRC, the fabulous Melissa Montero. Melissa, thank you for hosting the event. And the CMRC chairperson, Warren Schweitzer. To the CMRC staff, Aurelia, is that how I pronounce it? Is that close enough? Raman and Jaishi Pathur for all the back-end administration support, ticketing, food, venue, arrangement and promotions. To Yuma Menoon and the New South Wales Multicultural Business Connect team, give them all a big hand, thank you. And finally, this event would not be possible without the convener, Pallavi Sinha. Pallavi, thank you. 3 cheers for Pallavi. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hooray. So thank you, Pallavi, for convening this Innate Power of Women Forum, for conceiving the project, inviting all our speakers and panellists, and coordinating the entire event. Pallavi Sinha. Good on you, Pallavi, and it's a pleasure being your MC today. And finally, before we go, we have Business Connect. If you walk out the door there, opposite where the coffee was, they have a stall there. Please go and see them. They have a speed date beating Business Connect free service for all the women here today. So they will teach you so much and mentor you in so many ways. They're over there, they're waiting to see you. So stick around, we're not hurrying, we're not pushing you out of the place. We want you to network, meet, stay with each other, enjoy each other's fellowship and company. And finally, before you go, just one more announcement, and that is that when you do eventually leave here, all the hot drinks, cold drinks, food, alcohol, rum and coke, beer, wine, champagne, whatever you do, it's all going to be served absolutely free. And that'll happen the moment you arrive home. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Stephen. An absolute delight he was today as the MC. Now, I know everyone wants to probably run off. Quickly, there are two people, Varun Tavari, Kamal, who are dutifully taking the video for today, and they're also going to be a great assistance for our next event next year. Thank you, Friends World TV. And last but by no means least, who has been managing the proceedings for today so well? Our male champion, Mr. Stephen Sim. Please put your hands together for the MC.
Thank you.
Just a small token of our appreciation from Aurelia of the CMRC team. Thanks again to everyone who attended. It wouldn't have been a success without all of you here today, and we look forward to a bigger and better one next year. Thank you again.
Well done. Thank you.